Hello. Our story for today is from Flora Keaton, who was a Bletchley Park codebreaker, and she was aged 23. Cracking enemy codes. London's Whitehall is the perfect place to celebrate, thought Flora. No, she corrected herself, Buckingham Palace would have been the perfect place. But when she and her friends had reached London from Bletchley Park and tried to get to the palace, the crowd had been so vast that they had hardly been able to get into the mall. It would have been impossible to see the King and Queen when they came out onto the balcony with Princess Elizabeth and Margaret. Instead, Flora and her friend Mavis had decided to go to Whitehall, where the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, was due to address the crowds from a balcony at the Ministry of Health. But on their way along Whitehall, Flora and Mavis had become separated. It was hardly surprising. It wasn't just the size of the crowds, but the fact that it kept moving. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, home on leave would grab a woman and start dancing with her, or an impromptu conga dance would break out, with revellers joining a long line of people dancing along the street, snaking through the crowds, only to break up and rush back to the Ministry of Health with a joyful chant, "We want Winnie!" It was a mass outburst of relief after almost 6 long years of war, years of terror from bombing, of losing loved family members at home or serving overseas. Flora had been 16 when the war begun. From her parents' house in Fulham, south-west London, she had seen the daily aerial combats of the Battle of Britain and watched London burning at night during the Blitz. She had felt the loss when her 2 older brothers, twins, Tom and Barry, had been called up and gone abroad to fight, first in North Africa and then to Italy. The last message her parents had from them was to say they were now in Germany. At least they were alive. Flora's own contribution to the war effort had to be kept secret, even now that the war in Europe is over. When she had turned 18 in 1941, she applied to join the ATS, but had ended up as a code breaker in Hut 8 at Bletchley Park. It was her love of puzzles, especially cryptic crosswords, which had led to it. Apparently the people who ran Bletchley Park, the secret centre, set up to crack enemy codes, checked everyone applying to join the services to sort out those who showed ability at unscrambling puzzles. As a result, Bletchley Park had staffed by chess grandmasters, professors of mathematics, and those who could complete the Daily Telegraph crossword in less than 12 minutes. They were looking for more than quick thinkers. They were looking for those who spotted unrecognisable patterns in jumbles of words and numbers, and Flora had been able to do that from a very early age. She had realised when she had been at school that this made her different from most other children, that in some way she was odd. At Bletchley Park, she was just one of the many. Everyone there could be defined as odd, and none odder than Alan Turning, the man who'd been in charge of Hut 8 when she first joined the team. The fact that he was a mathematical genius was generally acknowledged, but it was his appearance that marked him out. His clothes were shabby and decreased, his trousers held up by a length of string around his waist. When he was excited, which was often, his stammer became so pronounced that he couldn't get out what he wanted to say, so he communicated in numbers, and so skillfully that people knew what he meant. But then, he was talking to the like-minded, those who saw in patterns. Not that Flora even considered herself on the same level as Turing, or any of the other top-level codebreakers. Hut 8 caught messages sent from the German Navy. Other huts dealt with coded messages from the German Army and Air Force. The process began with team members listening into the wireless traffic between German commanders and their outposts, including U-boats, and transcribing the messages, which were in German and had the top-secret Enigma code. These were passed to Flora and her colleagues, most of them also women, to identify patterns in the jumble of letters the radio interceptors picked up and to pass anything promising on to more senior officers. They in turn ran it through the bomb, a type of computer constructed with lots of valves, working at speeds faster than any human in an effort to break the code. The problem with cracking the Enigma code was not that they had to examine thousands of messages in the code every day, nor that the sending machine used an encryption system that had trillions of possible combinations, but that the key code was changed constantly. So it may have been broken once, but every time in the key code was changed, they had to start all over again. And each time, the longer it took to crack the code, the more Allied ships were in danger of being sunk by German U-boats, and the precious cargoes many were bringing to Britain would disappear under the waves, forcing Britain towards starvation and possible surrender. It was Turing who came up with the solution for the code breakers to look for the short, repeated, standardised phrases in the transcripts, things like Hail Hitler or Weather for the night, and nothing to report. Translate and crack those, and the trickier messages would follow. It worked, and from then on, Bletchley would continue to win the war of the codes. Flora's only regret was that their work was so secret they weren't allowed to tell anybody about it, not even close family. As far as the outside world was concerned, Bletchley Park was either an office or, of some sort of rumours had it, a rest centre for injured young men sent home from the war. No one must ever know what goes on here, her boss told her when she'd begun the work. No one, not even your family, or your husband, or your children if you should marry. No one. As Flora looked about her at the rejoicing crowds, she felt sad that none of them would ever know how much the people at Bletchley had done to help the Allies win the war. It was her victory just as much as the armed forces and everyone else in uniform, hers and her colleagues. Flora, it was Mavis pushing her way through the crowds. Towards Flora, her face flushed with excitement. "I've been dancing." "Who with?" asked Flora. "Everyone," Mavis laughed. "A sailor, a soldier, an airman, then a woman in engineering overalls. It was wonderful." The sudden shouts from the crowd of "He's here! He's here!" made them look up, as did everybody else. And there he was, Winston Churchill himself, on the balcony, his large trademarked cigar between his fingers, waving at the crowd as they chanted, "Winnie! Winnie!" He held up his hand to the crowd and quietened to hear him speak. "This is your victory," he declared. "No," roared back the crowd, "it's yours." "They're all wrong," thought Flora. "It's ours. It's all of us. Everyone in uniform and out of it. At home and abroad. Wherever we are, this is our day."